My background is sort of a convergence of continental philosophy and animal studies. I originally worked on the writings of an early 20th century biologist, Jacob von Uexküll, who was fairly influential at looking at the subjective lives of animals and how animals relate with their environments and reciprocally co-determine the environment in which they live and themselves as animals. So that's my background. Right now, I've got a couple of projects underway, both at different stages. One has to do with thinking about how animals interact with their environments and how, in the endangerment of various species, we're losing ways of behaving and modes of being, in other words. So for me, I'm interested in endangered species and the question of extinction, not as it relates to thinking about species qua species, but rather as modes of being in the world and how these animals that are disappearing in our midst, we're losing ways that give us a sense of how one can appear in the world or present oneself in the world. So, and to do so temporally. So just two very quick examples. One, and these are animals in and around the area where I happen to live today in Sudbury. Turtle populations, 7 out of 8 of the populations of turtles in Ontario are endangered. And so to look at the conservational work that's at stake in trying to keep the turtle populations alive is interesting because it's a very slow temporal process, right? Turtles live very long lives. The conservational work is a very slow process, yet within our current times, the work at process just simply isn't appropriate. Another example from a different perspective is monarch butterflies. Monarch butterflies aren't endangered, right? Interesting. They're in the billions, but the phenomena of the migration of monarch butterflies from Canada and elsewhere down to Mexico is itself endangered. So it's the phenomena of the migration as an endangered process I find interesting from the temporal point of view. So that's one aspect, dealing with the extinction and endangered species. I'm also hosting, I'll just mention as a little quick plug, a symposium on extinction, which I'm very pleased to have Ursula attending in November. Nice to meet you in person. We'll be able to catch up. Having both philosophers, literary studies, sciences, and so on, dealing with this phenomena. The other area, which I'll just touch upon really quite quickly, and this is actually where the brunt of my time is being put these days, is in the translation of 3 European writers that deal with philosophical ethology. So one is Dominique Listel, who's in Paris. He's got a number of books from the 90s through to today, about 6 or 7 books. So working on translations of his writings for a journal. Angelaki, working on the writings of Vinciane Després, who's at the University of Liège. And she asks questions about how we ask questions about animals and sort of bringing up the biases and the prejudices that we have in asking questions about animals. So I've got a book, a translation of her book, Que dire les animaux, coming out with the University of Minnesota Press in about a year with the Post-Humanities series. So some of you might know that. And a third one is Roberto Marquezini. So I'm just sort of doing translations at the moment, to be perfectly honest. That's my research. Thanks.